What the city is talking about.
The news that impacts you.
Welcome to the Montreal Now Podcast.
This story in the Journal de Montréal, Alice pointed this out to me earlier today, and I'd heard this too, sort of just anecdotally, where more and more people, and not even that it's more and more people, but younger and younger people have gone ahead and decided to, and I don't know where this comes from, I'm guessing this is a trend on social media, to go ahead and get themselves Botox injections, which in and of itself is a bit worrisome, but even worse than that is, at least in Quebec, and this is the story that's pointed out in the Journal, there are people administering these injections who are not qualified to, and I guess most of the people who are figuring, hey, I can get this done somewhere, maybe it's a little less expensive, do not understand the risks associated with this. It's not harmless to get something like a Botox injection. And in fact, in Quebec, right here, the Collège des Médecins has sued and gotten judgments against 23 people in the last couple of years who went ahead with these injections, were not qualified, they were not doctors, and they've all had to be either paying fines or been disqualified, etc. But this continues now. So I thought we'd try to find out a little bit more because, as I said, it's becoming more and more prevalent. And as I said as well, younger and younger people are doing it. Roni Munk is a cosmetic dermatologist at Dermapure. He's been on the show before. We used to actually do this fairly regularly years and years ago. Roni, thanks for coming on this afternoon. I know you're probably busy. But I wanted you to just explain to people why it is not just a matter of, you know what, find someone who offers to do this and hope for the best, because it can be dangerous.
It can absolutely be dangerous. And, for me as a cosmetic injector, hearing kind of this story and hearing people doing this where they're not qualified to do it, it's quite scary. And I find today, there's already a little bit of stigma associated with these treatments. People are more hesitant than ever to have these treatments done. And I think a large part of that is because of this black market that's out there and people doing these treatments inappropriately and unnecessarily. And so when you see other people that have outcomes that are suboptimal and maybe they look weird or they look different, it makes you wonder, should I be doing this treatment? And maybe this treatment's not for me. When in reality, these treatments are incredible when they're properly performed.
Now, I will mention as well to that point, there are medical complications that can arise, right? If someone is doing this who's not qualified.
There are absolutely complications. First things first, you need to do these treatments in a clinic setting that's sterile, because if you think about it, we're putting, hyaluronic acid injections deep in the face. That's what we call hyaluronic acid fillers. And these are products that can last in the face, even beyond 2 years. So essentially, it's not different than a surgical procedure. These are implants in the face that are going to last long term. And if you don't do it in a sterile environment, or even if you do it sterilely, but you don't know the proper anatomy and layers to inject these products, it can be very, very dangerous. And, unfortunately, because of the black market out there, I do see patients with complications, and it's scary.
But, the other thing I saw here, and I kind of did a double take, it talks about Botox parties or mobile clinics, or you can even get discounts on this. They post this on Facebook Marketplace. Have you seen this?
I have seen it, and it's more and more commonplace, which is why I'm actually quite happy that the Collège des Médecins is cracking down on this practice, because, in my opinion, medical aesthetics should be its own field of medicine. It's really specialized, and to do it properly and well, you need proper training. You need to know your anatomy. Our goal is to make people look their best, not make them look different, not make them look weird. And the truth is, if it's done well, that's exactly what it delivers. But it's gotten this stigma over time because we see so many people that look so bizarre and their whole aesthetic has changed. And so on the one hand, they look weird and different. These procedures can be harmful for their health if they're not properly done, and it's given the whole industry a little bit of a bad reputation, to be honest.
And by virtue of the fact that so many people are doing it now, I read in the same story that there are doctors basically being courted to do this, right? Just handle the injectable part, even though they're not necessarily qualified.
Absolutely. So, doctors think, and I know this because I train a lot of physicians and nurses in injectables. So a lot of people think, I'll do this on the side. I practice medicine, but on the side, I'm going to do a little Botox, a little bit of filler. It's easy. The truth is it's anything but easy. And I've devoted my career to developing an expertise in this field, but that's what it takes to really be able to deliver optimal results. And so I think even my message to other physicians and nurses is if your heart is not fully in it and you don't have that passion for it, don't embark in it because it's hard and people have high expectations, especially with social media. A lot of patients and people are unrealistic in their expectations, but it's not an easy endeavor as a physician to both deliver incredible results and meet patients' expectations. So if you're going to do it, you got to feel passionate about it.
Let me ask about that expectations part you brought up. Do you have people coming in sometimes will bring on their phone and show you, hey, I saw this. Can you make me look like this?
Every day.
Really?
Every day people bring me, pictures of other people. They want their jawline, their cheeks. And, it's all about you. The goal of these treatments is to make you the best version of you, not to give you the jawline that, this celebrity has. It's not realistic. And so the danger with social media is it does create unrealistic expectations. People are using filters. They're seeing their skin is flawless, but that's not real life. So the goal of these treatments, in fact, is to make people better and make them, have great skin and age well and look as good as they can for their age. But we need to be realistic. And aging is going to happen whether we want it or not, but we can definitely make a difference, but it's going to happen.
But one last thing I want to ask, because I started this conversation, Roni, by talking about the fact that there are kids now, literally kids, younger and younger, that want to have this done. I'm guessing as someone who does this, you have to at some point say to somebody, you know what, much as you want to get this done, it's not a good idea to do it at your age. Does that happen?
Yeah, it happens a lot. So, it's my responsibility as an injector to tell people when I think a treatment's going to make a difference and make them better, or when I think it's actually not going to make a difference, or even worse, be harmful. And so I use my clinical judgment, and I always want to do my best for my patients. And I think that's our responsibility. And if we're going to take this field to the next level and be able to deliver those optimal natural results, we have to be able and willing to say no. And it's not about the dollar. In the end, it's about our patients' health and safety and happiness.
What's the message to parents who have kids, perhaps, and I'm going to guess this is more often happening with girls than it is with boys, who want to be taken and have this done? What do you say to them?
Get the kids off social media. Easier said than done. I have 3 daughters. They're on social media. So it's a slippery slope. And, making sure that you go to an injector that you really have developed that trust in, that's going to tell you no or tell your kid no, you don't need that. I think that's really, really important. And, knowing what your kids are scrolling through and talking to them constantly, I think it's important because unfortunately the trend is to get treatments younger. Social media is so dangerous. It sets this crazy expectation. These kids are in their formative years. I'm a little bit afraid about what the future holds for this new generation. I don't have the answers. It's a little bit alarming.
Even more scary considering you're a cosmetic dermatologist, right? And that's what you have to face every day.
Yeah.
Roni, I thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Bringing you the breaking news and the people making it. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand. CJAD 800.
Dr. Joe Schwarcz is just standing by. He's hosted the Dr. Joe Show, which airs Sundays at 3 here on CJAD 800. He's also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society. And Joe, I read the first headline, which is a retracted study about apple cider vinegar. I thought apple cider vinegar was the cure-all for anything and everything.
Well, if you remember, we did talk about this study. It was a little while ago, a few months ago. It came out in the British Medical Journal, which is a highly, highly reputable journal, and was a study that was carried out in Lebanon on young adults who are overweight, and they were given apple cider vinegar, either 5, 10, or 15 milliliters a day, and they were followed for a 12-week period, and the researchers reported that they lost a significant amount of weight because they had taken this. Mm-hmm. And this study got a lot of publicity at that time. Why? Because the results were spectacular. the results were similar to what one sees with Ozempic or Wegovy. And, so there was a lot of talk about this in the scientific community. And very soon after the paper came out, and, after we had discussed it a couple of weeks later, the journal started to get letters from a lot of concerned scientists who looked at the data and did the same calculations that the researchers did, but did not come up with the same results. And they found all kinds of errors in the data. And when it all unraveled, it turned out that the data just did not support the conclusion. They had made statistical errors in the calculations. Now, of course, I didn't go into that, and I don't know exactly what the errors were, but they were significant enough that the paper has been retracted. And that is quite something, when a journal retracts a paper. That's not done haphazardly. It means because there really were all kinds of problems with the paper and that the results cannot be trusted. And the reason that, we originally talked about it was because you may remember that there was a series on Netflix called Apple Cider Vinegar, which talked about Belle Gibson, this woman in Australia, who lied about having had cancer and treated it with all kinds of natural remedies. And the series was called Apple Cider Vinegar because that was reputed to be a natural remedy. Well, I mean, it turns out that certainly as far as weight control goes, the data just didn't stand up, so the paper was retracted. And I must say that originally I was also suspicious about this. Why? Because Dr. Oz touted it.
Uh-oh.
He did a whole show on this, and he was just fawning all over it. That we finally have something that may be a solution to the obesity crisis, and that it also had anti-diabetic properties, etc. All of that, of course, is not correct. And he has now marched on to a higher position, unfortunately. And, this is another story there.
But, Joe, to be fair, I mean, if we're going to clarify here, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the amazing thing we thought it was. It's not the all-in-one, all-purpose cure.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a fine thing to put on your salad. But just don't look at it as any kind of medication or any kind of health food. That's all. It's just, interesting that this paper that had such a big impact, because the media was all over it, has now been retracted. Okay.
The other thing to get to today, you say the killer protein bar, developed by a health guru, and I guess this is all over social media as well. I'm sure I've seen this too. So they want you to buy it, but not eat it. What?
This is a fascinating story, and it's all about Joe Wicks, who calls himself a body coach. He's in England. Honestly, I'd never heard of him before this whole thing started, but he seems to be a pretty big deal in England. And he doesn't have any kind of scientific background, but now he has come out with this TV documentary, which apparently aired last night. So in England, I guess we will eventually see it on YouTube or somewhere else. And it's called Joe Wicks, License to Kill. That was the name of it, kind of, sort of clever. And it was all about calling attention to eating a lot of overly processed foods. And, of course, that's something that there is certainly concern about. And he wanted to call attention to this by creating a protein bar. And it's a protein bar that he advertises as something that should not be eaten, right? I mean, how often do you see an ad like that? And it says... on the bar itself, it says Deathly Bar. And, of course, the story is that the ingredients in there are all ingredients that you find in ultra-processed foods, which he claims are dangerous. Now, there's a bit of overstatement there. I mean, to suggest that having maltodextrin in a protein bar is dangerous because it can cause diarrhea. I mean, that's in the amount that is in there, that's not the case. And he's got all kinds of ingredients in there. He's got dozens of ingredients. And, the suggestion is that you should not be eating this bar. And it actually says on it, because it can cause cancer, it can cause heart disease, it can cause high blood pressure. Now, of course, that is meant to be satirical. But I think it's not exactly the right approach, because it is kind of suggestive that those ingredients, which are indeed found in some foods, really have been shown to cause cancer or are deadly. So he's trying to do the right thing, but I think not going about it exactly the right way. But I'm going to be keen to see this Joe Wick's License to Kill documentary to see just how this evolves. But I think this may be sort of a situation where the heart is in the right place, but the brain didn't exactly follow it.
Okay. I just, everyone's got something to sell. It's interesting to use that as a ploy, I guess, if you will.
Yes.
Buy it, don't eat it. So I guess it's kind of clever, I guess, in a way.
And he's, to be fair, he's not trying to sell these bars for profit.
Yeah.
Whatever money comes in is going to go to charity. And it indeed says on the bar, do not eat, So, I mean, it's just an interesting kind of gimmick to get people to pay attention to the problems with a high ultra processed food diet. Anyway, I think once this becomes available on YouTube, which I think it will, then we'll chat about it some more, because when we can have some more information about this. But again, you have someone here who calls himself the body coach, who doesn't have any scientific background, making essentially a science TV documentary. So, that's one issue that I do have with it.
I got to tell you, when you spend enough time on social media and you start to see, and I guess it depends what rabbit hole you go down first, right? But you see the proliferation of people out there who are trainers, body coaches, sports nutritionists. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It is.
How many of these people are out there?
I mean, you could spend your whole life on the social media finding things to criticize. But to be fair, you could also find things to commend.
Yeah. Because
there's a lot of good stuff. But you have to know how to filter. And one of the problems is that some of the nonsense can be made to sound very seductive. And, that's why, in sort of my professional life, separating sense from nonsense is I think, so important, because you have to know what is worth listening to and what is not.
That's the hard part, right? We don't get anyone to filter that out for us. We got to make that up on our own. And
that's why we're here, Aaron. Yeah. That's why we're here.
God bless you, Joe. Dr. Joe Schwarcz, you can catch him Sundays at 3 here on CJAD. Thank you, Joe.
The biggest songs in the world. You've heard them countless times. Now, learn the details of how they came to be. Join Ruby Carr for Encore, the stories behind the songs you love. New interviews and newly unearthed archive footage make for a fascinating weekly deep dive. Stream Encore, the stories behind the songs you love on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. The very latest news, reported and discussed. Welcome back to Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
It is time to check in with our CJAD 800 legal contributor, Chris Dimakos. And Chris, we're going to begin today with a clip from Seinfeld and explain why we're playing this that ties into what you're going to be talking about today. Marco?
But at this point, I think it's best if we both go our separate ways.
I don't understand.
We don't like you. We want you to leave.
Clearer?
Yeah, clearer indeed. But you know what? Apparently, here's a case of art mirroring life, or maybe vice versa, because that's, in fact, Chris, what you're going to talk about today, this idea that rather than, an employer simply saying to you, okay, here's your severance, off you go, this other thing is called working notice in lieu of severance. So explain how this works.
Right. So what severance is intended for is basically to give you some transition money to be able to find another job and be able to not have, be stuck with a mortgage payment and rent and groceries without any money whatsoever. So companies, if they let you go without any good or just cause, well, then they have to give you what is called severance, and it's supposed to have, take care of you until you find another job. And the longer you work somewhere, the older you are, the more difficult the job conditions are, well, the more severance you would get. Well, there is this alternative, and companies are starting to use it more and more, where they say, we're letting you know now that in a year from now or in a year and a half from now, you're going to stop working for us. So you still have to come into work every single day. You're going to get paid, but know now today that this is working notice that your job is going to come to an end. And the good thing about that for companies is they get to save paying you out the full amount of severance with you leaving, so they get an employee there. The bad thing is they don't really like to have employees hanging around that know they have no future at the company. It's usually not a good formula. So what happens usually is during that working notice, there's conflict, and either the employee decides to quit or the employer says, I've had enough, and lets them go, and then a legal debate happens after that. But, the point I'm trying to make is working notice is supposed to let the company keep you on board for the full amount of time that they've given you notice for, and it forces you to go to work every day, and that's in exchange for having to pay you severance. Mm-hmm. It doesn't often work out, and that episode of Seinfeld was an example of that.
So the subtext here, right, is clearly that the employer, realizing they can get away with this, hopes that you're going to be so dissatisfied at work or realize at some point, you know what, why am I still here? Because even though I'm still able to collect a salary, it's pretty obvious they don't want me here, they don't like me here, et cetera, and they actually hope that you will leave beforehand. Is that what's really happening here?
That's what often happens. And in this case, a case out in BC that the Superior Court looked at, they looked at an employer who said, hey, this employee is not leaving. So they changed their office from being in front of everyone to a storage locker.
Wow.
They started to relieve the employee of their responsibilities, and they kept on making it harder and harder for the employee until the employee said, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I'm resigning, but it's because you pushed me out. I'm still entitled to that severance, and I'm still entitled to more because of, it wasn't sufficient when you gave it to me. So the court looked at that and said, listen, if you're going to give working notice, you can't start changing the circumstances of work. You got to let them play. You got to let that play out. Let them have the same responsibilities, and you can't put them in a storage locker and expect them to keep coming to work. So, again, working notice is a tool that an employer can use, but often regrets doing so within 2 or 3 months of it playing out, because it's very hard to have an employee who has no future at the company still have access to all of the sensitive information and be in company meetings and take part in the decision-making process of how this company is going to act.
In the case you just referenced, so I'm taking it for granted then that the judge or the court ruled with the employee in that case.
They did. They said for two reasons. They said if you're going to use a working notice, that's perfectly legal, but you have to do so in good faith, and you have to do so, allowing the employee to continue to execute their job functions. If you don't want to have them execute any of their job functions, well, then you should be letting them go, and you should give them the severance instead of doing what you guys did.
Okay, but wait. So now let's say you get to this point. I'm going to make an assumption here, so tell me if I'm wrong. If we assume the employer has done this in bad faith, right, rather than having to pay severance, the idea is here you want to minimize the amount of money you would have to pay. That's clearly the number one idea for the employer?
Yeah, the number one idea for the employer is because they look at the numbers, and if you have to pay someone 1.5 years of salary up front, and not spaced out over the course of 1.5 years, that's a big chunk of cash flow that's going to be taken out of the company. So they probably want to keep their cash flow, and they probably want to space the payment of this employee out, and they probably say, you know what? You never know. Maybe the employee is going to say on their own, I don't want to do this anymore. I found something else. I found another job. I'm going to jump ship. I don't like it here. It's not pleasant here. And they kind of hope that's going to happen, where the employee is going to say, I found something else. I'm leaving early. Is that okay with you? Great. And you can leave. So it's to save money for one, and two, protect your cash flow, because, paying someone out requires to pay that full amount of money, if they indeed paid in a lump sum. So again, the company's looking out for their interests when they want to issue the working notice versus a severance lump sum payment.
By the way, this idea of I found another job while you're in the midst of this, agreement, this, the working agreement, the working notice, you can do that, and then you forfeit whatever other money would have been coming to you as soon as you take that new job?
Exactly. That's exactly what happens, because, the working notice is supposed to transition you from your current employment to your new prospective employment. And if you find new employment, well, then it's supposed to cover that. Sometimes what we have is the new employment pays less, and then some math has to get done and some negotiations have to get done to top up whatever amount of money you're losing out on because of this new job. And, negotiations take place at that point. But you're absolutely right. Once you start making money at the new job, well, then that automatically entitles the employer to say, hey, look, we gave them sufficient time. They found another job. We don't have to keep paying them. You're not going to pay them in double for working at the same job. So there's a lot of advantages at the outset for an employer to do that. The problem is, in practice, when it starts playing out, they don't foresee exactly how difficult it is to have the employee there every single day in those meetings, knowing that they're not going to be part of the formula in the future. And that's when trouble happens, and it usually ends up in court.
All right, so here's today's free legal advice from Chris Dimakos. Chris, someone listening now, finding themselves in this position, they've been giving working notice instead of severance. What's the next move?
Yeah, so when you get a working notice that someone's saying, we're letting you go, you keep coming to work, the first thing you want to do is you want to evaluate how much notice they gave you and whether or not it's sufficient. That's even before you jump on board. The second thing you want to do, if it is sufficient, you want to make sure that you understand what your obligations are going to be during that time. You don't want to have a situation where the employer says, you have to come to work every day, but we're going to stick you in this office and you're going to basically doing nothing all day. That's not what the law says has to happen. You have to continue your job,
okay,
at least to some degree, like you were doing before. You might have to train a new employee, you might have to do certain things, but you can't just be put into a storage locker like the episode and asked to stick it out there for a year doing nothing. So the first thing, is it sufficient? Is there enough time there? And the second thing you want to do is figure out what exactly you're going to be doing during that time and making sure it's legal. And often, you know what happens? A negotiation starts taking place. You can say, you know what? Can we work something out? You know, I'll look for a job. If I find something else, can we have some sort of arrangement where we negotiate what a severance would look like if I find another job? All these things are negotiable. Nothing's written in stone. So when you get something like that, the first thing you want to do is have it reviewed. Take a look at what they're saying. Is it sufficient? Does it check off all the boxes? And then you can start negotiating if you have to.
Chris Dimakos, our CJAD 800 legal contributor. Chris, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Because you don't want to miss a thing. Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
All right, taking a look at tech this week. We're joined by Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst. Carmi, I'm kind of fascinated by this story. The Find My Phone feature on an iPhone is actually pretty good, right? I mean, the idea is right, because no one wants to lose a phone, and if there's some way to find it, that's wonderful. I heard John this morning with Andrew talking about, he mentioned someone having lost a phone and finding it in the middle of Lac St. Louis. But this story is interesting only because, and who would have thought of this Find My feature has led police to find what?
Not just one phone, thousands of phones. So a gentleman in London, England, had their, unfortunately, phone stolen, and they reported it to police, and they also handed over they were using the Find My information to track it, and they tracked it to a warehouse. And so they gave all that info to the police, which is smart because you never want to take the law into your own hands. That's dangerous. And the cops went to this warehouse, and they didn't just find one phone. They found 895 phones.
Wow.
And then they did some more investigation. All of them were pinging. Like, they were all visible on the Find My network. And then they used that information to find another 2,000 phones in another location, and they arrested 18 people. And as it turns out, it was part of this very large smuggling ring where criminals they're no longer smuggling drugs across borders. Turns out iPhones are much more lucrative. You can make a lot more money doing it. You can sell them in China for upwards of $5,000. So thanks to the Find My feature, they were able to zero in on exactly where they were. And I think that's a reminder to all of us when you get a new iPhone, make sure that you turn on Find My, learn how it works, play with it a little bit. I've used it on mine more times than I care to remember because I just lose my stuff constantly. And if you have an Android device, it's called Find My device. It works very similarly, but you got to turn it on and you got to make sure that it's working. That way, if the worst does happen, at least you know where it is and you can hand that off to the police. Okay,
so my confusion arises from the fact that they go using the feature and find phones. How did they find all these other phones? Does it ping every other phone? Like, how did it work?
So they found the location of the one phone, and then they and that one phone, they opened up a shipping container, and it turns out that one phone was sitting in the middle of a pile of hundreds of other ones as well.
Wow.
And when they started pinging them individually, they all showed up at exactly the same location. And as it turns out, other people had been reporting their phones being stolen as well, and they were all showing up in the same location. And so that's the thing is like Find My is not just an app; it's part of a global network where all Apple devices will, if it's an iPhone and it connects to a cell network and it has location services, that's great. Even if it isn't, if it's an AirTag, for example, it will connect to other Apple devices when they're within Bluetooth range. And so they all work together, and that's why you can see all these different Apple devices on a map when you open up the Find My app on any other device. And so I use it on my, if I ever lost my iPhone, I have Find My on my Mac, on my iPad, even on an Apple Watch you can use it, and you can find these things wherever they may be in the world.
Learn how it works on yours. Great idea. All right. OpenAI launching, I'm not sure what this means, apps inside of ChatGPT. So
yes. So, I mean, this is really cool because normally you would think, if I want to plan a vacation, for example, I would go to Expedia.com or I'd load up the Expedia app and I'd use it. Now, instead, when you're using ChatGPT, you can just say, hey, please have Expedia plan me a trip to Florida this winter. And then from within the chatbot, the app actually loads up and it does what you want it to do. So basically it makes ChatGPT app aware, and they've partnered with a bunch of different companies. So Booking.com, Spotify, Zillow, Canva, and they're going to be adding a bunch more over the next little while. DoorDash, Uber, Instacart. So when you order food, for example, you don't have to open up the app right from the chatbot. You can just ask it, and it will automatically activate within the chatbot.
Okay, wait, I have a question, though. So that's fine if you're saying, like for Expedia, for example, right? What if you just generally ask the question, book that trip and find the lowest price for me without specifying a travel app?
So the cool thing here is that it doesn't just activate when you tell it use this particular service. It tries to determine, based on the conversation, if you need that service in the first place. So, for example, if you ask it about music, please find me a really cool playlist of EDM music because I'm having a party this week. It will pull up Spotify or maybe another music app because it says, Aaron's interested in music, so I'm going to use Spotify. So it's listening for context, and because it's artificial intelligence, it tries to guess which app would go best with what it is that you're looking for. Now, of course, that means sometimes it may pick the wrong one. Maybe it will suggest Expedia, but you wanted to use something else. So it may get it wrong. And of course, we're not going to know this until millions of people start using this every day. But it's interesting because if you think about it, this really is a shot across Google's bow. Whenever you go online, you use Google to find stuff, zero in on the websites and apps that matter most to you. Right. Now, OpenAI is saying, you're not going to need all that stuff. We're going to do it all for you right within the chatbot.
Wow. It's just getting better and better. I mean, and I know that there are lots of different options here, and I keep seeing stuff on social media suggesting, you can ask it this and ask it that, but the warning is always, Carmi, you know what? Don't take what it says as 100% truth. You got to still sort of, be a little wary, right?
That's right, because we know that AI does what is called hallucination or confabulation. It gets things wrong, and sometimes when it gets things wrong, it tries to cover up the fact that it makes the mistake. It's almost like the kid that didn't do their homework and tries to lie about it to the teacher when you all know they're lying. So whenever AI does generate an answer for you, in any case, whether it's using an app or not, you should still check your sources. Don't just cut and paste and submit it as gospel. You should make sure that you found the website that it's referring to, that you read it, that you trust it, that you feel it's legitimate, and that you were able to double, triple, quadruple check that, yes, that is indeed the case. Because, otherwise, and we've seen so many cases where, for example, lawyers will use ChatGPT to write a brief for them. It'll cite cases that never actually happened, and next thing you know, the judge is calling them up and they're getting disbarred. So this is happening more often. AI is still not perfect, and if we think that it's going to book our next trip for us, we may want to double check all the things that it suggests for us before we, pull out that credit card.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read today, actually just earlier today, there are a record number of lawsuits have been filed now over that kind of stuff with AI, where, information provided just turned out not to be in fact accurate. So keep that in mind.
Buyer beware.
Waze, which is something my wife will not get into the car without, has got something called, and I think this is actually, if I read this right, really interesting, conversational reporting, which will allow you to point out road hazards. How would it work?
So, Waze already has that feature built into it. That's one of the reasons why people like it so much is that as they're driving along, they come across construction, so obviously Montreal, lots of reasons to use that, speed traps, accidents, basically things that will make you late. So you can pull it up on the app and you can say, okay, here's an accident, and then that will get shared with other users of Waze so they know to maybe avoid the area. So it's incredibly powerful, but a lot of people don't like using it because you've got to play with the app. And in my car, I use Waze all the time. I use it on Apple CarPlay, but I still have to play with it on the screen. I'm driving in traffic. I don't want to be reporting and being distracted. So they've come up with something called conversational reporting. Instead of having to press a bunch of different buttons, you press one, the report button, and then from that point on, you just talk to it. And it uses artificial intelligence to figure out what it is that you're saying and assign a report to it. So, for example, if you're driving along the Decarra, you say, look, I just saw a car flip on its roof, right near the OJ, well, then guess what? Waze will then be able to figure that out, and it'll put an accident notification in Waze in the right spot and share it with everyone else. And you get to share that without being distracted. It basically takes a feature that's been around for a long time, and it makes it a lot safer to use. Because it's one of the reasons why I don't like reporting, because I find it really distracting. This would change the game significantly.
So, right, you don't need to know how to post a prompt or anything else. You just say it in conversational language, and it will figure it out and post it.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the promises of AI, and it's one of the we call it use cases that AI does really, really well. If I'm asking it to write a really big paper, it's probably going to get stuff wrong. But if I ask it to do one simple thing, figure out where I am, figure out what it is that I'm trying to say, and put it into a reporting section of an app, it turns out it can do that really, really well. And the more people use it, the better it gets because it gets trained on all of these people using it day to day.
Wow, good stuff. All right, Carmi, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bringing you the breaking news and the people making it. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand, CJAD 800.
We are very happy, pleased to have the mayor of Montreal. You're still the mayor, by the way.
Oh, yes,
still
I'm the mayor.
For at least another month or so. Valerie Plante is in studio. Thank you so much for coming in. I know you got a lot of things going on.
But it's my pleasure, Aaron. I'm going to call you by your first name because I've never done that before. But right now, I feel like I can say Aaron.
Now you can, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can say that.
What's the worst that could happen? First of all, I should mention we introduced you to Smoke Meat at the Snowden Deli. This is last year, I guess, maybe even longer than that. And you still go back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Love this place.
Listen, I know you've done a bunch of interviews, lengthy interviews, looking back over your career. We don't have the time to do that, nor did I think that's something we need to do. People can find that wherever on CTV. You talk to Mitsumi. I understand. I just want to know a couple of things. Number one, starting with, you and I have had a variety of interviews over the years.
True.
And my big goal has always been, not as a citizen, but as an entertainer, to make you laugh. I think that's worked pretty well.
You're pretty good at
it. Thank you. My first question is, how are you? How are you now?
I'm good. Really, I'm good. It's been almost like a year since I've made the announcement that I wouldn't be running again. So I feel I'm ready to leave, definitely, because I've had the time to grieve and to say goodbye to a lot of people and to also kind of digest the whole thing of saying like, oh my God, next year I'm not going to be in office. It's a big deal for me because I love my job, but I'm doing very well, I have to say.
Good for you. I would ask, because again, this is going to be 8 years that you've been doing this. When you came into politics, at least in the city, very few people knew who you were. All of a sudden, the right man for the job, you're the mayor. In the time that you've been mayor, right? My question, I guess, is what did you learn about the job that you never could have expected? You wanted to run to
Right.
be mayor thinking, this will be great. I can help Montrealers. What did you find out? Like, what was in here that you didn't think you'd have to deal with?
I didn't realize how much issues we would have to deal that we don't have full power or the entire resources, the entire capacity to act on. Because, a city, we take care of snow removal, we take care of parks and pools and garbages and stuff like that. But cities have changed a lot in the last decade when it comes to homelessness and mental health and housing, all these things that we need to work in partnership. And I'm not saying that we weren't able to do some accomplishment. We did accomplish a lot of things, but it's not the same as having all the power in my hands.
So it's harder than you thought.
Oh, yeah, it's harder, yes, because you definitely need to make sure that you want to bring other level of government to see the things that you see, to make them realize that citizens are suffering or people are dealing with cohabitation, which is tough, or different types of issues. So you need to bring people forward, different type of governments.
You've heard people say, you know what, right now the CAC does not really care about Montreal. They only have 2 seats on the island. Therefore, that makes it even more difficult to try to explain to a provincial government that doesn't seem to care much about Montreal. Did you find that to be the case?
Well, it's true that it's a government that doesn't have much deputy here, right? And you've said it, 2 people. So it was a job. It was not always easy to bring forward the issues of Montrealers. And one example right now is, I know the CAC talks a lot about religion in the streets and stuff like that, where for me, what I've been saying is, I see people living in the street, homeless in the street. I see that more than ever. And citizens are calling me not about prayers in the street. They're calling me about people living under a tent. That is the real issue in Montreal.
I would ask you something really stereotypical, like, was it everything the job now 8 years later, everything you hoped it would be?
Hope it would be, yes. I loved being the mayor. It was a great. Was it demanding? Was it exhausting? Was it frustrating by sometimes? Oh, absolutely. Was the pressure on like nonstop? Absolutely. But I did love my job, and I feel like I was able to accomplish a lot. Of course, there's marking the territory with green spaces, and maybe we'll talk about cycling paths and stuff like that. But there's also within the public policies, and I know citizens don't see that much, but I think we've brought a lot of the feeling of let's not leave anyone behind kind of approach to the city, and through the public servants and the entire machine. So that is something that I'm really proud of.
For all the frustration things that you went through that you just mentioned, did you ever have a moment where you asked yourself, what the hell did I get myself into?
No.
Never?
No, because when you take this job, it's for 4 years, you have a contract. And this is exactly why, for me, when I decided not to run again, remember I said, I do have the energy. And you see me right now, I'm full of energy.
Well, wait a sec.
Okay, go ahead.
You were in this studio September of last year.
What did I say?
Here's what I asked you. There's a municipal election coming up next year. You're going to run again next year. You said you would. I'm going to take you at your word. I don't think anything will change between
I am.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, this is it. What I was talking about, the energy. When I said that to you is because I was clear. I felt like I had the energy, and a few weeks after, I had to just realize that I was not able to sign for 4 more years of that type of energy.
Why? You're full of energy. I'm looking at you now. You're full of energy. Why?
Combination of things, like I said, there's a lot of pressure. We could talk about all the death threats I'm getting, the kind of harassment, I would say, to a point. And it does affect you one way or another. It affects my family, my kids. There's different reasons, but ultimately it's just I couldn't sign up for 4 years, and there's no way. I would have said yes, and in a year or two say, well, sorry, I'm going to leave, because that would be another election and money in the pit. I didn't want it to do that.
Is it weird to hear yourself say that a year ago with so much definite? I'm going to run. I'm here. I'm going to do it again.
But that's who I am. Like, I'm so clear about when I start something, I do it. So when I answer that, it was clear in my heart. But then it changed, and there's no way I would lie to Montrealers about it.
We're not going to talk about the campaign, because I was told you don't want to talk about what's going on now, and I understand that. But I want to get just your reaction. There's a poll out today, not about specific parties, but the number that really jumps out, 62% of respondents in this Gazette poll say they want a change of administration. 62%, almost 2/3 of Montrealers. How do you react to hearing something like that?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. It was quite similar 4 years ago. It was like the polls were saying Montrealers don't want Valerie's administration anymore. And we did win a second mandate even stronger. And I'm not saying that to say there's an election and the candidates need to do their job and convince people why they have the best ideas. But I'm used to, it's normal that people want change. Is it change in their menu? Is it change in the poll? Is it change in their street? Is it change of their husband or wife? I don't know, but usually people want change.
So you're saying that just in general, people eventually want change.
And my administration's been there for 2 mandates. But what is important for me to tell Montrealers is that it is not the same person. It is the same party with the same values, but it is not the same person.
Okay.
Monsieur Rabouin has his own ideas, his way of doing, his priority, economics and everything. I don't want to talk about the campaign.
You brought it up.
But it was kind of a difficult situation.
Okay.
But so I feel like the election will tell us what Montrealers decides for November 2nd. But I hope people will vote. That's what I'm inviting.
Yeah.
Whatever you think, go and vote.
Yeah.
So important.
It's the worst thing to think that we had 38% of people turn out for a municipal election.
I know, it's the worst.
It is.
Absolutely.
All right, listen, I know you got to go, and I got to wrap up. The last thing, this has been our running gag since, I think, the last 3 or 4 years. I always ask you a question.
I know where you're going.
I always ask you the question about Cavendish. This is your answer that we have kept forever.
We're doing Cavendish for sure.
We're doing it.
No, you're not.
Yes, we are.
No, you're not.
Well, we'll open the whole neighborhood. It won't be Cavendish as we used to see it.
It's Cavendish Boulevard. Cavendish Boulevard that you said you would open. Regardless.
Okay, go ahead.
I got you this.
I'm doing
You
Cavendish.
and me are the only two who have this shirt. So here you go.
People are going to see it, right? So it says, I'm doing Cavendish for sure. And there's my signature.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. And I have a gift for you. I don't know if you want to open it on right now.
I'm sorry. I can't accept a gift from the mayor.
Oh, come on. Well, but I'm almost not the mayor anymore. You have to.
Okay,
seriously.
well, that's very kind of you. Do you want me to open this now?
Yeah. I would love it.
Is it safe?
Of
Okay,
course
I don't know.
it's safe.
Could be a gag gift.
So I feel like since I'm having a Cavendish shirt. Oh, can I help? Do you want me
sorry.
to that? There you go. I'm getting a Cavendish shirt. You're getting
I'm getting a tie.
What's on it?
Bicycles.
There's little bikes on it.
Thank you very much. This is my lovely tie.
This is great.
There's no bicycle path, though. It's just bicycles.
There you go.
So what's going to happen? That's very nice. Thank you. That's very
And it's been a
thoughtful.
pleasure. Thank you so much for, bringing up always the good questions. It's so important. I feel like we're in a time where people need to be informed all the time, and your radio show supports that. So I will thank you. Thank you for the work and the entire team as well.
I thank you. Listen, you've always been approachable. When we've asked you to come on, you've come on. Sometimes it's not been easy for you. There have been some issues that have been going on. So let me thank you for being that easily accessible for us and for everything you've done as well. For all the Montrealers, of course. You've been the mayor for 8 years. We wish you all the best. When do you start your job at the UN?
I don't have a job at the UN.
You don't?
No.
Oh, my bad.
If you were hoping for, you're not the first one to ask me this question. Okay. But you'll see me around.
You're not telling us what's next, though, right?
No, because I'm definitely taking a break.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you. I appreciate everything. And take good care of yourself.
And
it's great to see you.
This has been the Montreal Now Podcast.
Listen live on your radio, weekday afternoons from 2 to 6.
On CJAD 800.
Or through the iHeartRadio app.
The biggest songs in the world. You've heard them countless times. Now, learn the details of how they came to be. Join Ruby Carr for Encore, the stories behind the songs you love. New interviews and newly unearthed archive footage make for a fascinating weekly deep dive. Stream Encore, the stories behind the songs you love on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.